Welcome to Shaping Stories, a glass artist podcast. Thank you for being here. Will you introduce yourself?
All right. My name is Marc VandenBerg. I'm from the Detroit area. I'm a flame worker, glass blower, mix all the mediums. If it's hot, I'll give it a shot. I don't know.
Yes.
I like working hot glass. It's funny. So that's my thing. Trying new stuff.
And then skip the glass part of your life for a minute. What do you do outside of glass?
Chase dreams. Wait, no, that's my glass thing.
There's a
Um,
life outside of glass. We all have to
yeah,
remember this.
yeah. I've been trying to find that actually over the
Mhm.
years. Yeah, go kayaking, go outdoors,
Mhm.
ride my bike, try to run, just, stay in shape. That's running's kind of the most meditative thing. Just bought earlier this year, got a boat, an Achilles. So it's like the Zodiac. It's the Australian version of a Zodiac boat. So a little rubber boat. So I'm gonna get that out on the water. Um,
What water do you go out on a boat?
So there's the Detroit River right here
Oh,
in the city. Yeah, between Canada and the United States. That
that's
horrible country of Canada. That's such a
terrible.
scourge to America, right? Which it's really cool. There's a Belle Isle in right off of Detroit, and it's this beautiful island that we'll go hang out on, just looking at Canada. And it's really cool because when the sun sets, it's actually the river is going east west. So when you're leaving the island like late in the day, it's like sunset over the city. It's super special spot in the world, really. But
Oh.
um, yeah, besides glass, that's about it. That's
That's a full life. We'll give you.
yeah, you know.
You do things.
Yep. Yeah, tried to.
Okay, and then when did you start doing glass?
Almost 30 years ago. So
And how?
next year will be 30 years. I so generally interested in glass, and honestly, it was glass pipes. Early 90s, I'm going to Michigan State University, and always saw glass making, going on family vacation. Um, Thought it was cool. Never thought it was something I ever would do, but I was studying video production, television production at Michigan State, and we did one of our projects. We interviewed the guys in the chemistry building that did the lab work, custom lab work, repairs, and they gave me a catalog. They're like, if you're interested in this, here you go. And it was before the internet, so it's like sweet. Ordered a torch and some glass, and got some books from the library in Michigan, and it's the biggest library in the state of Michigan, and they had 3 books on glass making. So took them home. I was braggadocious enough, I guess you could say, to think it's just heat and gravity, right? Just get it hot, it's gravity, sweet, keep it centered, and quickly learn that no, it takes a lot of dexterity and getting your hands to work together, and there's just so much more to it. So I flame worked for like 5 years before I got a job at Greenfield Village, the Henry Ford Museum, which just became the right time, right place with the right people. That place offered the ability to learn glass blowing, furnace working, like I don't think any other place in the world could offer. At the time, I was working with Eric Meek and Treg Silkwood, and then Jeff Mack came in and was managing that studio. All into the Italian style and making goblets and stuff. And I remember first starting there thinking, all right, you started this too late. Like I was 26, I think, at the time, and like you'll never make stuff like that. But it's kind of funny how you really never know how far you can take something if you're truly interested in it. But yeah,
Wait, so did you start with Boro?
I did start with Boro. Yeah, so I started with Boro, and it was when I first started working at the village. I learned about Corning, and I learned about all these places you could go take workshops and classes. And the first workshop I ever took was at Corning, early 2000s with Emilio Santini.
Hmm.
And just happened that the hot shop class was all hand picked flame workers that Gudenrath had picked. So it was Mickelson, Donnie Hatch, Lewis Wilson, like, just all these accomplished flame workers just coming in to have a week of fun basically and mess around with the furnace. And it was that week that Lewis Wilson, made the comment to me. It's like, why are you working boro on the torch if you're blowing glass out of the furnace? You should learn to, work soft glass, and you combine the two. And I really took that to heart, and I think it probably took 4 years to really make the full transition where I really felt like I knew what I was doing with soft glass, because it was so I'd taken a Lucio Bubacco workshop then 2 years after Emilio's, and Lucio showed us the little elephant that he used to make when he was first flame working, in the streets of Murano and selling them to tourists. And it was just like this quick little exercise. So like I remember for a few years, it was the first thing I would do when I go sit on the torch every evening was just make like 5 or 10 of those things and just like focus on, it was Moretti at the time, so it was 104 glass, but and slowly figured it out. And then it was then working at the Village and working at the Henry Ford Museum. It provided so much freedom. We were able to do whatever we wanted, really. We had a product line that was all historical American glass, pitchers, bowls, creamers, ornaments. But what was awesome about it, looking back now, was all the handles, the bit work, all these little attachments and trails and stuff that really developed a whole lot of skill and really honed the craft end of working with this material. And I again couldn't have found a better place to have taught skills like that and provided the opportunity. We didn't get paid worth crap, but I was able to walk away with more skill than anywhere. And then I ended up managing that shop for 8 of those 14 years that I was there. And I'd say took full advantage of the mandate to demonstrate to visitors. And some days it was half the day, the afternoon, come back from lunch and be like, all right, whatever you want to make, we're going to help you make it. And just like, chase our own ideas and dreams and skill learning. So, it's where I learned to pull cane. It's like I learned, got a chance to work with Elio Quarizia a number of times at the Village, Davide Fuin. So we really pushed. It was Jeff at the time, Jeff Mack, and then I continued it after he left, but to push the administration to be bringing in these artists as visiting artists, and because we were getting all kinds of pushback. And then it wasn't until it was like 2013 or 14 when they acquired a collection from a couple that was getting older out of Chicago. And part of the mandate of them getting that collection at that museum was that they do start bringing in visiting artists. So it was like,
Oh.
I like to think we were ahead of our time.
Mhm.
We warmed the administration up to this idea, like, you're going to have to do this because, it's like, especially here in Detroit, I'd always tell the administration, it's like, look, you got all these school kids that are coming here, especially in the spring before school gets out. And especially in Detroit, like most of these kids aren't even going to travel out of the state in their entire lifetime. And here we can be bringing, Murano, Italy, or whoever from around the world, and give them culture. That was a really interesting thing working in that atmosphere, because we get kids from the city coming in and they've never seen an animal before, like a cow or a sheep, and they'd still be talking about it when they came into our shop. And it's just like
Hmm.
wild. It's really crazy to understand the differences that people grow up in. Um,
So you were self-taught and you're kind of like a little Boro boy doing your own thing, reading books. And then you're in this like the soft glass environment in the out of the furnace where it's so teamwork oriented and you're in front of the public. Was that a culture shock for you, or did you find that was better for you? Are you more of like an independent kind of worker or
yeah, yeah, I'm fairly independent, although I've always told people, so glass making, especially furnace working. So I grew up playing sports, and I'll just say glass to me is like it's the sport of arts. Glass, especially working with glass in a hot shop setting, it's like you got a team of people. Everyone has their job, their position, your responsibilities to get this job done. You got a clock running, which is the glass itself. It's like whether you got to take heats on it, you can only do so much and so much time. And you got the communication end of it, which I found that was the most interesting part of working at the village over the years. Is every year we get new people in every summer, and like part-time people, and just communication, especially in the moment of working a piece. And I've had plenty of people that would watch us work and afterward be like, "You guys are real assholes to each other. Like, you guys are short as fuck." Like, I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm getting something done. Like, I ain't
Yeah,
got
you're
time
direct.
tonight. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
say thank you. Like, it's your job."
Yeah, yeah.
But the thing was is like, like telling people, "Hey, bring me this type of bit," and they bring me something completely different than what I thought I was saying. And then I'd think about what I actually the words I chose, and it's like, all right, I get how you interpreted that. Let me try a different way to articulate this. And I'm just working through that kind of in the moment. But yeah, I find that and the material is just super challenging. So it's like I'm super blessed with these skills that I can do so much with this material, and it's daunting at times, but at the same time, it's like doing these shows and you get input from people that are just like, "I've never seen anything like this." And it's like, well, that's what I'm going for. So sweet.
You're like, "Well, this is me. I'm a unique person."
Hey, although I heard so the greatest one of the greatest quotes I ever heard was from David Byrne. I think he was on a 60 Minutes. He's like, "Look, I'm like a super shy guy. Like I'm the shyest." That was and actually speaking, that's one thing that the village did help. Like being in front of people, doing this, and having to talk to them. Like it kind of got me over the shyness that I did have.
Mm,
But yeah, David Byrne made the comment. He's like, "I'm the shyest guy ever, but me being on stage is me being able to announce myself to the world and
mm.
in a protected capacity in a way that then afterward I can go and just go back to doing who I am. But I'm this persona out here." So yeah, the village became it's really like I know people that still work there right now that it doesn't provide the same opportunities that as when I was there. It was kind of the wild west of glass studios in cultural institutions that have unlimited resources. So it was always like, well, let's get a clamshell roll up kiln. Let's just propose it to management. And we need it. We roll up cane, and it'd be hilarious. You just like send them like, we need this. And all right, it's on its way. Like, sweet. It's not my 5 grand, but we get all the toys and stuff. So we're trying new color. Yeah, it was there's no other place like it in the world, at least that from that time.
And what did you do after that? It was time for a change, so you left that?
So 2014 ended up so was able to move in and start building a studio downtown that was the Russell Industrial Center. So that's where the conference was when it
Yeah.
was in Detroit. So Albert's studio where we were up in Michigan Hot Glass there,
Mhm.
where the vendors were, that space and behind the studio.
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
used to be that whole space was broken up into 6 different smaller artist spaces, and there one of those spaces was where, Adam Thomas and I we had built a studio. We actually had taken over a studio space that our other friend Paul Rundy had, previously been there. So we moved into the space, just had to build a furnace, the equipment. He already had a hood that was installed in there, so it made it easier to move in there. But then I had the studio there for 10 years, and since then, still like we'll do special projects for studios in the area if they need stuff. So like Glass Academy right up the road here in Dearborn will call me if they need cane pulled, or I like to call myself a gun for hire in a way.
What kind of stuff did you make when you had your own studio? Was your studio set up for you to do production or for you to like teach people or a little bit of everything?
It was a private. It was a studio for Adam and I. It was for me. The whole goal was to be able to have a torch right there and a hot shop. So I've really kind of played around with this idea of really kind of blurring the lines between a flame working studio and a hot shop where I've played around with the idea of gathering glass out of the furnace, get color applied, whatever, however, take off a little bit, add it onto a boro punny, go over, and now I have the mask that I wanted with the color on it without sitting there spending 15 minutes
Mm.
just gathering the glass up at the torch. So And I'm still kind of playing around with that idea too, making some other stuff, just making these little color blanks that I'm heating up and at the torch now, and I'm going back. Or I've found is ways of putting figures on the end of like really long glass punnies. So then I'll put them in the garage on these punnies, and then I can take them out, heat them in the hole, and then come over to the torch, and the glass punny handles the transition of heat fairly well, and
Mm.
I like to just fuck around and find out more so than anything with this material. Honestly, dollars are secondary to me, just chasing this idea in my head and getting it out of my head. And then I'll freak
Do
out
you,
about paying bills later.
so it's mostly 96 that you're doing now, or ever since you kind of started switching over, you said you did a little of 104 and now you're mostly 96?
So a lot of stuff I do is 96. But I'll still do 104. Depends on what it is. So I'm collaborating with a painter downtown here, Adnan Sharara. Um, and he makes these wild characters, and um, so he's always wanted to interpret those in glass. And I was like, I'm your guy, dude. Like he's even talked about. He's like, I've been to China and da 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 da, and I'm like, well, I can do it. So I've been flame working these guys and get scaling them up. But those are all 104. So
Mm.
104 is just way easier. It works way better in the torch than 96 does. It's
I
just
mean,
it
you
flows
like burn out
easier.
all the color in 96.
Yeah, yeah. 96 gets really tricky, especially certain colors. Uh,
Mm.
I really love flame working veil cane these days, and because you get all this whole additional action going on within the glass that you can kind of influence with how you're melting it together to maybe try and create. Because I've had people like, oh my gosh, you can see the muscles in there. I'm like, yeah, 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 you can. Yeah, that's exactly what
All muscle.
I was. But you get this other cool stuff happening, and like made these figures with a gold topaz veil cane that I've used. It's really cool to see how that heat from the torch changes and creates these other colors within this figure that you can't predict or recreate. So yeah, it just depends on what I'm doing, basically what glass I want to work with as far as the soft glass goes.
What, just for the glass artists that are listening, can you tell us a little bit more about like your favorite torch that you like to use for this kind of stuff, or any specifics on equipment that you find is more helpful for the style of work that you use?
So I started off. So the torch I had for many years was a GTT Phantom, when I was still really working Boro. And then I used that switching over to soft glass. I got a Herbie, which I use with soft glass and Boro. But the torch that I really use the most is the Lucio burner from Carlisle. The ports are swapped, so you have the oxygen on the outside, so it does make for somewhat of a softer heat that you're putting into the glass. And you can just yeah, it's just a great little workhorse torch that can take a beating too. And it's not the one with the dragon head on it
Mm.
and the crazy. It's just the straight barrel. It's just it's like any old Italian style burner, really. I know I've seen a few come from somebody around here, and I'm like, that's an Italian style burner, just a little snub nose, little torch. And it's amazing how nice those really work. But yeah, for soft glass, that's my go-to.
And do you have a specific studio that you do most of your work out of now, or do you rent out a space, or do you kind of float around?
So right now, my go-to is Acorn Studio in Plymouth. So my buddy Phil Yamron, we worked together years ago at the Village. But he's got a studio out in Plymouth now these days that I'll go rent. So it's kind of he has the same approach to how a hot shop should be set up as what I have because we worked at the Village together. So it's real similar, and he's super accommodating. Yeah, I had made these goblets with all these flamework elements attached to them a few months ago, and he just made the comment like, I just want to have a studio where anything can be done, and you're testing his boundaries. I'm like, and it works, dude. Like, yeah, the studio is great. So it's nice to have. It's nice not to have a studio where I'm having to maintain stuff all the time. it's I've found it's like six one, half a dozen of the other. Having the studio, when I had the studio, it was great because I could go in and play around and flesh out ideas and not feel like I'm wasting $50 an hour, like screwing stuff up. Whereas on the other side, I don't have the responsibility if something goes wrong and
Mhm.
having to take care of it and drop everything. So yeah, it's nice right now to not have a studio, but yeah, I look forward to having at least that little portable setup
Mm, mhm.
and be able to take it places and do events and just use that to make money in itself, hopefully.
Mm.
But we wrote for a grant here in Detroit in the Tri County area. There's this Kresge grant that's awards I think $50,000 to ten artists, and it swaps every year. One year it's visual arts, and then the next year it's performing arts or literary arts, something like that. But yeah, I proposed for a portable studio for that to get for that grant, and it might be in the works. I don't know. I'm not going to say anything more than fingers are crossed. Yeah, it's because I've seen other people that have gotten rejection letters already. So
Ooh.
I'm scouring the email. Like, are you kidding?
Like reload.
Can't figure it out, right? So we'll see. We'll see if that comes through. But that, if we get that, the whole idea that now maybe I could just get a brick and mortar that's a small gallery and pull this thing up to the gallery once a week, every other week, once a month, do demos and take it back home.
Mhm.
And yeah, we'll see. Just trying to like break the old mold of the shop that's static and not really static, but just built into a building somewhere.
Mhm.
I don't know. Flying by the seat of our pants over here, really.
No, it's cool.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't know how else to live, really.
Yeah, I'm stuck in my static. I'm like 12 years in to a warehouse,
Yeah. So
like
is that do you rent that space then?
yeah, I rent out like 4,000 square feet of a warehouse.
Is that the Are you the only entity in that warehouse then, or is it
Mm-mm.
bigger than?
No, it's bigger.
Okay.
Yeah, there's four businesses. I'm one of them. And one of them is a Mexican restaurant, which like when they're cooking and that smell's coming like in through my intake, I'm like
Yeah,
dying. I'm like I
right?
packed lunch, but right now I want a quesadilla. You know?
Hilarious. Yeah, that'd be super distracting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's great if I want to open up to the public, but like people like get drunk off of margaritas are not my go-to for wanting to talk to people either. So,
Right. Oh, I
yeah.
remember, yeah, so I had the studio after leaving the village. The studio down at the Russell. We were there 10 years, and then right after COVID and the moratorium of raising rent was ended, our rent got raised twice in 1 year. And Albert was just like, I can't afford that extra space. So the space I was talking about behind there, he used there was a third of that I want to say, or 25% of it that was just like a metal scrap yard of his, of like found scrap steel that he would use in his sculptures, but like cool pieces. Like he'd always look for things that were like industrial accidents gone, and it's twisted metal and stuff. But
Yeah.
he was like, I can't afford this to pay the rent on this. So y'all got to go. So I ended up going to a studio in Wyandotte, which is downriver here, and helping them start the Wyandotte Art and Glass Center. So I was there 2 years, and speaking of dealing with drunk people, so it was the first studio I ever really did a hands-on consistently with people, which I realized how much work that is. It's like you're
It's
entertaining.
soul sucking.
It is soul sucking. It's hard on the body in a completely different way than just blowing glass.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Bending over backwards in the wrong way.
yeah, yeah.
So
Doing
many
whatever
feels.
to make sure people get a piece in the oven and you stay on time and they're
Mhm.
entertained. But yeah,
Mhm.
we had a few super wasted people come through, which
It's hard. I get
yeah,
it.
I was always like the idea, like I'm gonna let you go as far as I feel you're comfortable with, and then I'm immediately going to just like snatch that. When I see things going south, I'm going to snatch
Yeah.
that pipe and
You
just
like
full
whack their hand.
control.
Don't touch it. Don't touch
I
it.
Yeah, it's like this may seem rude, but it's for your best interest, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Which we had one girl pass out on us. You ever have that?
I didn't, but pretty close calls. And I taught at the local university, and somebody before us, this kid passed out in the glory hole. Like they had
Huh?
to turn the glory hole off and then life flight him and then like skin graft like the whole, yeah,
Holy shit!
literally. He got caught in between the yoke and the glory hole and they couldn't get him out.
Holy shit!
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's nothing what I saw. Damn. Yeah,
Scary, right?
we had this girl. It was crazy. It was kind of sad because her grandma, she had just graduated high school. Her grandma like came in. She was like kind of accomplished stained glass artist. She came in like a month earlier, 2 months earlier. Hey, I want to do something special for my granddaughter. She's graduating. I want to do something with glass. So we set up a private little workshop for her and her granddaughter. They were going to come in and do three things, three projects each. And it's like the second project blowing, 18-year-old girl, perfectly healthy. Like, all right, blow, blow. And it was me and my buddy Nick. So I was kind of like the main guy, and then Nick was back there, like handing the blow hoses to her and just kind of like
Mm-hmm.
attention. And I wasn't watching her, I was watching the bubble. And all of a sudden I hear this bang, the bench moves. I look down and here's this girl literally face down on concrete. And I'm just like, what? Yeah. Like luckily she had hit the bridge of her nose on the bench arm going down. Yeah, I was like, oh, scary as fuck.
Yeah.
Scary as fuck. Like
Yeah.
and the crazy thing is, so this is even crazier, is that she went to the doctor. So her dad, who had blown glass here back years ago at College for Creative Studies, so he kind of knew. He's like, yeah, it's physical. I get that. It's hot. It's physical. So he wasn't too pissed at all. But they went to the doctor, plastic surgeon, and I guess the girl had like some little form of cancer in her nose right there.
So it's
Yeah.
actually a good thing.
So it somehow played out like,
Wow.
yeah, they found this. Yeah,
That's actually such a good story.
it's yeah,
Crazy. For it to
super
be
crazy.
18 years old and to pass out and then to.
Yeah, we just found this little cancer in your nose, but yeah, it was
What
fun.
was it? What was it like being so that industrial center, Hanky, shh. That industrial center it's so massive. I actually had to get home and then look up the square footage of it. What was it like working in such a massive space like that? And it was kind of like dilapidated.
Oh,
Like the bathrooms were okay. Like for one of the sinks, it just had a hole in the sink. So the water went through the hole in the sink into the drain in the floor. And I was like, this is actually impressive, but it just is. Like,
that's Russell. It was it's funny. So talk about like how the village was the Wild West for like learning. How we were like the Russell was the Wild West of places in Detroit for artists to go to where there weren't rules.
hmm,
We could do anything we wanted. So like when we built our studio in there, we built it, turned it on. There were no city inspections. Like,
it's
um,
crazy, right?
yeah, like so that building's history. Leona Helmsley used her realty group years ago, I think, back up into the '80s, owned that property, and then when she got caught up with her tax evasion, I think it was, or whatever that she went to court for or got in trouble for, she had to sell that, and then a guy Dennis Kafflanos is local slumlord here in Detroit. Like he's second largest property owner next to the Illiches, who own Tigers and whatnot. Um, but Dennis bought that building for like a penny a square foot, like the most ridiculous price ever. Um, and just he fired all of the Helmsley Group's people that worked there that knew the building. So when they owned it, windows would be replaced. Like it looked good still. Like they kept the place up. They knew the inner workings of it. It's a suit. The thing was built in the early 1900s, so
Yeah.
the electrical panels were super antiquated. I had electricians come and be like, I won't even touch that thing. I don't even know what I'm really looking at. But yeah, when Dennis's people came in, it just went to shit. So Dennis is one of those people that, again, slumlord. the city would fine them. So over the years, the city would fine them, and when we got told to when we were told to vacate that property, it was because of the ghost ship in LA. So back in 2018, this artist enclave, the ghost ship, burned down, and it was full of wooden pallets. Like, they had gotten, the city came in plenty of times. Well, 20 some people died. Well, local reporter here from Channel 4 decided that the Russell Industrial Center was Detroit's version of the ghost ship in LA. So I'll never forget. This is like kind of right before Christmas, watching 11 o'clock news, and here's this expose on the Russell Industrial Center and how dangerous it is. And, there's no fire alarms and da 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 da. And she ends the whole broadcast saying, or the whole segment saying, there's been 5 fires in the past 2 years that the cities have to come out to. And I'm like, I remember then turning into the person that was there. I'm like, yeah, and nobody got injured. The building still stands. Like, so that building, what wasn't said is the building was engineered by Albert Kahn. So he built a ton of buildings here in Detroit. Kahn buildings. They're really well known around the world, actually. And the Russell is the first. So the Russell was built shortly after the Chicago fires, and it was engineered. It was the first building ever to be engineered with reinforced concrete. So Albert Kahn's brother, I think, engineered this casting or concrete pouring technique that is meant to isolate. So if you have an industrial accident, the building itself will isolate it. So if you have fire somewhere, the fire's not going to spread.
Mm.
That
Hmm.
building, when we were in there, I joked, it's like, this thing is going to stand the test. This thing is going to stand forever. Like, storms would be rolling through like a tornado. I'm like, hit it. Like, this building's going
Yeah,
to blast the tornado up before the tornado does anything to it.
that's so funny.
The floors where we were on that first floor, the floor is like 24 inches thick. Like, the building will stand forever. So it was after that news that the city came in, like within a day or two, and told everybody to get out. And it was really became a fight between Dennis Kafanos and the city, and we were all just caught in the middle. And it was wild because a bunch of us tenants were now started going out of the city and whatnot. And it's like, look, we're just caught in the middle. The city. It was interesting because the city seemed to have this idea that, oh, it's just a bunch of artists like hanging out, partying, not really doing anything. Rather than, it's like, no, you got people in there that have 40-year-old businesses that, this
Right.
they've built their lives here. And
Right. And the amount of investment that you have to run a hot shop slash flame shop within that building is like
yeah,
the
yeah.
value is extraordinary.
Well, yeah, that place, the Russell, it was the Wild West. So it was like we could get
Yeah.
away with so much and do anything, but then you're kind of at the whim of, we were lucky if the elevator worked. So there were plenty of times where it's like the elevator would be down. It's like there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah.
Or you go to the back elevator, and because we had the Michigan Glass project going on there for years now, and it was cool because we'd bring a little portable hot shop. We just wheel it across the parking lot for the most part, and have
Hmm.
it at the project, which was cool. But the elevator wasn't working. It was a nightmare. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, the bathroom. I mean, that's Russell plumbing right there.
Yeah.
The floor drain.
Yeah. No floor drain. One time the bathroom was closed for a whole day. It says pigeon in here. Do not enter.
Oh
The
yeah.
sign during the gas conference. Like, welcome to Detroit.
Oh no. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and you get your exercise going up and down the stairs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, during COVID, that place was a godsend to have, really, because
Yeah.
I would, like, I live like 20 minutes away and drive down there, and I'd spend the whole night. So it was crazy because I'd wake up at like 7 and go down there for the whole night, and the sun would be coming up. So I'd go out to Belle Isle, which I mentioned earlier, and watch the
Yeah.
sun come up, and then go home and go to sleep. And I really enjoyed. There's like time didn't exist.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Isolated, happy as a clam in the city.
yeah, yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Everyone just stay home. Like, it was great, no traffic.
Right. That's funny.
But yeah,
So, so when you're thinking about like your glass ideas, how do you, I guess first of all, do you have like a list of all your project ideas, and or do you keep like a sketchbook? Do you draw out what you want to do? How do you organize all the things in your head or out of
Um,
your head?
draw them out. Like, yeah, definitely try to
Yeah.
sketch stuff out, make tons of lists. Like I got a list here, it's random pieces of paper, basically. But yeah, I do have a book too that if I'm gonna draw stuff out, I'll draw it in the book for sure.
Mm,
But yeah, or print out pictures. But yeah, a lot of what I do is I need some reference, something to look at while I'm making it, because especially with figures, that's one thing I've always found with figures. It's so hard. You're already worried about how the glass is moving, right? Like I'm already just like focused on making sure this glass is going to do what I want it to do, let alone be thinking in my head, what's the position of this figure
mm,
without a reference? Because I've found over the years trying to just have it in my head of like, yep, arm should be going here, 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 and there, this leg, and it's like get done. It's like the body doesn't move that way.
right, the arms
Really good to have,
backwards.
yeah, have to that reference there.
And a lot of the projects that you're working on, are they your own ideas or are they like kind of custom ideas or collaborations that you have with other people or just varies?
A lot of what I make is my own stuff, my own ideas. So yeah, I chase my own dreams. I love doing commission stuff just because it gives me direction, especially if it's more creative. Had a guy recently that wanted just a doorknob for his podcast, so it's kind of like just a prop. But it was
Mm-hmm.
like he sent me this design, and so it was like a tentacle with this eyeball, with fire behind it, kind of thing. So those are always fun to do. It's like I love, yeah, I love being given ideas that are creative. That it's like sweet. Let me figure the process out for this, and I don't have to necessarily come up with a new object. I get to focus
Mm-hmm.
on the glass part of it and the process part of it more so than because yeah, trying to be creative 100% of the time is
Mm-hmm.
daunting, super
And
daunting.
how do you price crazy ideas like that? Do you keep track of your time or you wing it?
It's kind of
Like you're
more.
always in the negative.
eh, I've been told plenty of times I don't charge enough for what I make, and for me it's like, well, I got to sell it, and I
Yeah.
need money to come in. But yeah, there's some of that. So recently, I sent two goblets down to Dallas, Kitcher Rifkin Gallery, right before the gas conference there, and I'd taken them to the studio down the street here to get them to re-anneal them. So these pieces I make on the torch and stick together all on the torch, I have to go re-anneal completely. And yeah, Michelle Plusinski, who's runs that studio down there, she was like, "Oh, I told my staff those were $4,000 a piece." I'm like, sweet, sounds great, but no, like I'm gonna ask like 1,800, and I even feel that's too much for them. And again, that's playing the gallery game where half of it's going to the gallery. So, but she makes, Michelle made the comment like nobody else is making that work in the world. So, like, yeah. How do you get that across to people on the everyday that I don't know. And again, it's like this weekend, Farmington here in this area, people appreciate good stuff and will spend money. 2 weeks before that, we're only like 20 miles away at most, and people appreciate it but aren't going to spend money on it. So, um,
Are you
yeah,
putting all those goblets together by yourself, or are you like having an assistant sometimes?
the figurative goblets, the balancing act ones, are all done on the torch. So
Mm,
I blow the cup and the foot out of the furnace. So that then, yeah, I need the assistant there to make a cup and a foot, but the rest of it then is all done. Make the figure on the torch, and it's assembled on the torch. So where I'm just heating up just the end of that Evolio real slow to where then I can connect it. Um,
mm.
and then that's why I have to go back and re-anneal everything to get rid of
Right.
this.
So when you're putting it together, by the time you're done with it, it's already cold. and
Yep,
then you're
I'm
bringing
hanging
it
on
up
yeah,
and
I'm
down.
hanging onto the cup, I'm hanging onto the foot with my hand and doing just the connection points, so it's, that's one of those skills that I took from that Lucio class years ago of like, "Oh, you can reheat glass if you're real patient,
Mm-hmm.
like, real slow, just be real attentive to what it is you're doing, and, yeah, the things you can get away with are amazing." That's kinda
Yeah.
how I've always approached this. It's like, just even reheating larger rods in the flame, it's like, "Well, how fast can I reheat this?" And that kinda will give me an idea of, like, going to reheat Avolios or something. It's like, "Okay, I can how fast can I do this?" Or is this just too big of a rod to ever put in a flame without it exploding on you instantly? Or,
Mm-hmm.
you know, everything you do I've always thought anything you do with hot glass, there's something to be learned from it.
Right.
So,
So you kind of went full circle where you're working by yourself and then you were working like as a
yeah,
team, and now you're back to doing all the things you learned as a team by yourself.
kinda by myself. So, yeah, and right now here in this area, it's hard to find assistants. It's hard to find some skilled assistants that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's tough. So that's the other thing that I've found having the studio at the Russell years ago after leaving the village was, and I've seen this with other studios that are able to employ their people, like I can give you 30 hours a week, like guaranteed. It's like sweet. It's like I wish I could do that because only then can you really like lock people in. Otherwise, kind of in this for me, it's now all right. I gotta first coordinate to get into the studio, and hopefully that works with Acorn's time and what Phil has going on and the renters he has and whatnot. And then I got to secure an assistant that has that same time off. It's just like too many variables. it gets it gets hard where it's like, all right, what can I make on my own? What can I do
Yeah.
on my own? And luckily, I can make a decent amount of things on my own fairly quickly. And again, that goes back to my time spent at the Henry Ford. So there was a stretch there I remember where there was only 3 people on staff. And so there were days where I was in there by myself or somebody else was in there by themselves demonstrating and well, I'm going to figure out how to punny on my own, you know? So it's again, that was like one of those great experiences at the time was like, this sucks. This sucks being here alone and doing this all alone. But later on, I was like, oh, I can bring my own punny. I can do all this. It gave me the opportunity to train to do that and still be able to make a dollar on my own, be on my own, I guess. Although I still prefer to work in a hot shop with people. It's like, there's so much more you can do. And,
Yeah.
and it's just more enjoyable.
Yeah, it can be lonely.
Yes. Yep. Can get
Yeah.
really lonely. But
Yeah, I do a lot of solo work since COVID, but I kind of like a lot of the stuff I do. I plan it being solo,
right,
and I
right,
have to schedule play days so that I don't feel crazy in the shop, like trade time with my friends.
right. Well, that's one thing we used to do when we had that studio at the Russell. We used to started doing this Friday night thing where just like, hey, open studio. Anybody just come on up, hang out. I used to like buy a bunch of food and we'd cook food with hot glass. And so it was this whole little thing. And eventually, like, it was amazing how from when it started, it was just like a few of us that would show up every Friday and blow glass, just make weird stuff. That was the coolest part about it is that, my one friend Matt, who's a painter, he wanted to blow glass, wants to be a glass blower. And I'd be like, yeah, here, take gathers. And he's the worst gathers ever, but it was like, yeah, that works. We'll use it. But then I'd have all these pieces and parts sitting around, and he'd be like putting some things together and like, let's do this and that. So it was like, yeah, it was just this great. I really missed that. That's one thing I miss not having a studio space is and how it just created this amazing community over a couple years where Friday night it was like this place to come up to and hang out and see what's going on. Um, so if I was to ever have a studio again, that's the value of just having playtime
Hmm.
became invaluable as far as and just allowing people to come on up, be like, here, take a gather. And for me, it was always like watching like how comfortable are they with this, and oh, you got some potential there. I can work with that kind of, it's like
Right.
and who doesn't want to give that shit a try? Like,
Right.
so,
And then also, like, not that glass ever feels old, but when you see that spark in people's eyes where they're like, oh my God, this is so cool. You're like, oh yeah, it totally is. I'm so lucky.
yeah, it is. It's like this weekend. I tell people, I'm like, I'm of the 1% of the world, not monetarily, but I get to chase my dreams and do what I love to do, and I'm on my own time. Like, I'm one of the richest people there are.
hmm
So yeah, it's good to be able to recognize that.
And what do you do when you feel stuck and uninspired now? How do you get through that?
It really takes so I'm one of those people where I've kind of been the procrastinator, and it takes that deadline to it's like, all right, now you got to make decisions and go forward. But yeah, I've been that type of frozen creative where it's kind of overwhelming and I'm going to avoid it. But I'm getting better now. It's like I realize how much it's important just to get in, like, get downstairs in front of the torch and start doing it. As much as you don't want to. For me too, it's
Mhm.
kind of like running. I hate running, but 3 times a week, it's like get out and run. And when you're done running, it's like, man, I'm really glad I did that. Like, like, wasn't that bad?
Yeah.
Was while you're doing it, all right. But yeah, if you just the power of just that one step forward, all of a sudden creates another step forward, and it really, yeah. Because too many years I've been somewhat fearful of, even just like getting into something and then screwing it up, or being in glass too. It's it not becoming what I saw in my mind's eye in the end, and being a little disappointed, even though
hmm
it's glass and it's like dude, it's the hardest material to work with and control, and especially when it's hot to get exactly what you thought you saw in your mind's eye. It's like easy on yourself, dude. Like I am
hmm
my own worst critic by far. So yeah, I used to always be like, I don't know why people want, it's like I could point out all the flaws in something. People are like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, no, but look, it's right here. Like,
Yeah.
that's part of the beauty. I'm like, whatever, you can buy it. Just buy
Yeah. Yeah. Please buy it. I'll give it to you at a discount. I'll be
it.
losing money on it. Just pay for my fuel.
Yeah, yeah. I should eat later. Or, I don't know. It's
Yeah.
funny how, yeah, just the mindsets of being an artist and like doing these shows too. And at what point do you make that jump from I'm now no longer going to sell ornaments or anything under $500. I'm just going to put out this high end stuff and only sell one or two pieces. I don't know how to make that jump mentally or step through that door and feel comfortable like it's going to work out. But I've also had that, conversation with the guy Adnan, who I'm collaborating with, the painter. Because I was like, "Do you get nervous about stuff still?" Because he seems like a pretty established artist internationally and everything. And he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I still get nervous about paying the bills or trying to, what's coming next." Like, he's got a bunch of collectibles and stuff around his studio space, and he's like, "That's why I'm looking at selling all these collectibles because I just had this funder, this guy who usually would spend a few $1,000s a month on my work, just lost his job. So that just fell through. So I'm like, well, it's kind of good to hear that artists, even in other mediums, it's like we're all kind of in that same nervous cycle of, am I going to make the money this month? And we both then said, but throughout our careers, it's always happened. So
Hmm.
it's like, yeah, I don't know how I've done it all these years, but I've done it. So it's worked.
Right. No,
Magic.
that's why I like doing these interviews because I'm like, oh my gosh, well, if Mark can feel like he's second guessing himself and he's putting things off, and then
Yeah.
I feel that too.
Well, and another great quote I heard not too long ago, Elton John. It was the album that he just put out. I forget who the other singer, the collaboration, but I think he was on Jimmy Fallon and both of them. And there, he was asking, was asking, do you get nervous? Like, 'cause you go into the studio, you guys had nothing planned. And he's like, you've been doing this, what, 80 years? You're probably not nervous." And Elton John's like, "Oh, no, I was super nervous." Like, it's like having that idea of failing is possible. And he said he made the comment of, God, what was something like, as a creative artist, if you take on a project and you aren't nervous, then you probably aren't a creative artist.
Mm,
Because in that creativity, you got to be taking some risk. If you're not taking
mm.
a risk, you're probably just, more of a crafts person that's just repeating something you've done in the past. But, and again, that's one of those comments like, oh, maybe that's why I feel the way I do. I'm trying new shit.
Yeah,
That's normal, even for a guy who's that successful. So sweet. Yeah, it's those
yeah,
little tidbits of introspection that from these other artists and other mediums that I'm like, okay, we all are on the same roller coaster.
yeah. Wow. So we kind of went through all the questions that I normally like to ask. I don't know if you had anything else that you wanted to talk about, or if you have words of wisdom.
Um, chase
You,
your dreams. Just, I guess, yeah, I've always been amazed at how humans will always find a way, and it's even with glass. You don't even necessarily have to make the nicest things, or and it's just in what you put out there and who you are, and I think the energy you put behind it really. That's the feedback I get from people at shows too. It's like that energy that comes back when I'm talking about the work that people really appreciate. So, it's kind of the intention that put behind the work. If it's pure, it'll come.
your
It'll
work
come through.
speaks for itself. You don't even need to sell it, I swear.
I appreciate that.
No.
I just try. It's like I've been blessed with such amazing amount of skills and super grateful to have found it in my life and kind of like stumbled upon it. Um, it's kind of funny. I left this out earlier, but the job at Greenfield Village really wasn't the. I'd gotten in quite a bit of legal trouble with pipes and shit.
No.
Yeah, and so it was amazing how this really horrible event in my life at the time made me get this job over here at Greenfield Village that created who I am today. And
Yeah.
life is funny like that. It's I can laugh at it now, but looking back at that time, that was like I was looking at some serious legal consequences in my life that would have changed completely every.
Yeah, crazy.
So yeah, glass saved my life.
Wait, do you ever dabble into the pipey world?
Again, no,
No.
no, no. I don't. I can't remember last time I made a pipe. I think it was me just messing around trying to make like a bust of a female figure for the most part. But
Hmm.
yeah, there's too many pipe makers out there now. It's the market's so saturated, and the market's changed so much with how people even smoke weed. Here in Michigan, it's crazy. It's like you can go to the store and $30, you're getting an ounce of weed. Like, like Michigan smokes more weed than any place in the country, as far as from what I hear. And it's like the little vape pens. It's like people
Mm.
don't buy pipes really anymore, and that whole collector base that used to buy the super headies because they were growing weed and had a ton of cash sitting in their house, that's gone.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, for me, pipes in the beginning, it really was. It was like, all right, I can make pipes. It seems like a simple object, but it allows me to start to understand this material. And because yeah, I always wanted to go beyond that and do more of what I'm doing
Mm.
these days. And I still try to chase the idea of creating narratives in the glass more so than just objects.
Mhm.
I've made way too many objects in my life already. So how do we start telling the stories and create objects and or imagery that people can really relate to? But that's a whole nother realm of sculpture and whatnot.
No, I see it in your work. Okay, so can you tell people where they can find you and support you?
So you can go to the website vanandbest.com. So
Hmm.
I came up with the Van and Best because it's more about like if we all my approach was if we all go out in this world and give our best like, each and every day, just try your best. It's going to make the world a better place. That's my approach to glass making is just try and do my best. Otherwise, on Facebook, Marc VandenBerg. Instagram is Marco2150. Follow on there, and then you'll see what shows we're doing. We were down in Florida back in January this year. Plan on going back this coming January. So start traveling more. So yeah, really chasing the art fair scene as far as upcoming years, and stay tuned with the social media.
Hmm, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Dominique. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you so much for listening to Shaping Stories. If you like our podcast, please make sure to follow on whatever platform you're listening on. We are always grateful for your reviews to help other artists find us. You can find us on Shaping Stories Pod on Facebook and Instagram. And please make sure to support this artist that we interviewed today. It's a lot of guts to come on here, and we appreciate them being vulnerable and sharing, and especially for their very valuable time. If you know somebody that might like to be interviewed, or you might like to be interviewed yourself, I would love that. Please send an email over to me to dom@terrapinglass.com. I really look forward to seeing you, and I can't wait to continue with this project.